Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Club Moffat Talks. I am your host, Christy Panetta, Digital Services Librarian.
That just sounds so fancy, Chris. I love it. I'm Joseph McNeely, and I am the instruction librarian or uninstruction librarian.
You are the instructional librarian now. We only have
Yeah,
one since Chris has a new title.
yeah, that's true.
So you are the
I am
instructional librarian.
the I am the instructional librarian.
Yes. I'm Ryan Samuelson. I am the associate university librarian for public services.
And I'm Dr. Melissa Nivens. I am an associate professor in English, and I'm also the faculty director for First-Year Mustangs Adventure, our most recent QEP.
Wonderful. Thank you
I'm
so
happy to be
much for
here.
joining us, Dr. Nivens.
Mhm.
We usually go around and talk about a little bit of what we've been doing so far. We don't really have a set schedule for who goes first, so whoever wants to open it up. I tend to go last because I mostly ramble.
I
I
usually go first, don't I? Okay, I'll go
you
first.
usually do, yes.
Um, Invincible season two has just finished up. I liked it. I think one of the things I like about the series is Robert Kirkman has been going through and improving upon what he's written. So it's not only as an adaptation, but he's actually had taken the time to make the story flow better, basically, and improve the the pacing, so to speak, and of the story for the most part. I'm also watching the fourth season. I think I can call it that, even though it's by a different company now. The fourth season of Daredevil has begun, and I'm starting to watch that as well. And I like that a lot too. I think they've improved upon the original network series, which came out 7, 8 years ago. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen either of the. I saw about a half of the first season of Invincible. I thought it was okay. It was okay. It was fine. I might go back to it at some point.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Nobody's forcing anyone to enjoy anything ever.
I know, but there's so many people out there like, oh no, you have to watch it. It's the most wonderful thing. I like it. If you don't, that's fine.
You haven't seen Death Note? That's a I heard that on a podcast a long time ago. I like to bring it up all the time.
That
Um,
was funny. Uh,
well, Joe,
yeah, I did watch the first season of Invincible, and I had read like the first couple of the graphic novels that series is based on, and I enjoyed it. I have not started watching the new season. Uh, Probably I'll end up doing the thing where I go back and rewatch the earlier season. We're actually doing that. I have an addendum from last month because I talked about that my wife and I had stopped reading the Wheel of Time series. We got about to the halfway point, and she was a little chagrined. She felt that I had maligned her a little bit, that I had made it seem like we just quit reading it. But we had a lot of reasons, and we talked about some of the reasons why some of the things that are wrong with that book series. It really, really drags. There's not really any good guys. They have that thing sort of like in Star Wars with the Jedi Council that you've got this group of people that are supposed to be good, but they're very manipulative and secretive, and they're like, why don't people trust us? Like that. And not very good character growth. And so there were a variety of reasons why we did stop reading it. We didn't just go, eh.
Again, I think I'll mention it again. I think I mentioned it last week or last month. That's where a lot of people stopped, by the way. Yeah, you're not alone in that.
But
got
that
a few
being,
pages into I got a
pardon?
few pages into book five.
Uh, yeah.
Like not a few chapters. I read a few pages and I was like,
I
uh,
I had read the entire series back in the day, but and we had started watching the TV series and we enjoyed it. Even though the TV series and the books are quite quite different, some of the things that we felt were problems in the books have been addressed in the transition to TV. And because of that, we are actually going back and rewatching the earlier seasons because they've got a new season dropping now.
oh
Uh,
wow. They're just going
Um,
through it.
yeah. But
How do we get 3 seasons of the Wheel of Time when we only have 1 season of One Piece right now?
Budget.
yeah, yeah. Making little swirls of sand and smoke is less expensive than making someone's arm stretch.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Uh, and we've started reading the Witcher series, which again I'd already read all of, and we're reading those together now at night. We saw a few movies this weekend, and I did want to talk about those. Three very different movies, and I think I'll do them in the reverse order of what we watched them. That we watched the like stage musical version of Waitress. And I had seen, of course, the old original movie almost 20 years ago, and had liked it. But I had that thought about how on earth are you making this into a musical? What does the music do for it? That show's amazing. And I would totally love to see a live stage production of it at some point in time. The music helps tell the story. It's was beautifully choreographed, marvelous. If you're into musical theater at all, or if you've been a fan of the music of Sarah Bareilles, who does the music for the show, absolutely you should check it out.
I'm
Then we saw the movie Electric State, which I didn't know was a thing until we saw the trailers for the movie. The movie is Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown and other people.
a lot of promotions for that. The Millie Bobby Brown has really been making the late night talk shows and all of that.
It's based off a Swedish artist, an art book that he did. And he's got very haunting art that I've always loved for years. I forget his name, but yeah.
I can't tell you that, but it was really moving, and absolutely has things to say about political and social economic issues. One thing that did surprise me is the time setting for it, because it's an alternate timeline, because it takes place in the like mid late 90s, but in the aftermath of this war with the robots. So it's not traditional contemporary Earth that it's set in, although it's very much has the vibe of being um, the Earth that we know and love up to about 1990 or so, because they have a nostalgia for things of the past from like the 70s and 80s. And so, it in that way, it has a little bit of the like Ready Player One kind of vibe with that kind of nostalgia for the past issue. But that was very good. Okay. Then we actually saw this movie first, but I wanted to mention it last for the obvious reasons. We saw Craven. Um, and I had talked in a previous podcast about the Sony movie, the last Venom movie, Venom Last Dance, and I had said that it was a horrible movie, and that it brought about the end of all of the Sony Spider movies, and that it's all Tom Hardy's fault. And someone said something about comparing it to Craven, and of course I hadn't seen Craven yet. I've seen Craven now. The Craven movie is better than the last Venom movie. It
Okay,
is
that's a
Goodness.
critics and audiences don't agree with you, but okay.
it is better than the Morbius movie. It is better than the last Venom and Morbius put together. That being said, it's not a particularly good movie, but it's not the worst Sony Spider-Verse movie at all. And My fam was talking about it because we were talking about that, really, of all of the Spider-Verse characters that they did, really Craven should have been the best, because he's the one character that actually makes sense to have a solo movie that's not connected to Spider-Man. And none of the others really make sense that way, and they just did them anyway. It was okay. I mean, it's that actor doing action movie things, and I mean it's ridiculous, but it makes sense, you know.
So I will say about Morbius though that there is a like within a minute Morbius goes into the morb chamber with all the bats, and then he just mysteriously he just has a ball that he starts throwing around for no reason. That I think I saw. I was watching a stream with a bunch of people talking, and they called it the morb orb. And then he runs into a freezer and starts morbing out. Like he's screaming and he's turning into his Morbius face. And then he goes back outside and starts throwing his morb orb. And just those, I don't know what it is about it, but I just keep thinking about like I don't remember another Marvel movie recently where it's like within the stretch of a minute, more stuff happens that I remember so vividly than the Morb Orb and the Morb Chamber, and then he morbs out. Like I don't care how bad or good the rest of these movies are. That's gonna stick out to me for the rest of my life, I think. I'm gonna be on my deathbed looking at all the like seeing the ghosts of people from my past and thinking of all these nostalgic smells and all these other things while I'm fading away from this world. And then I'm gonna think about Jared Leto holding the Morb orb, and I'm gonna be like, we're back to fond memories now.
Oh,
So I'll just say that.
oh, okay. You did. You said that.
All right.
Dr. Nivens, there was some things that we wanted to talk about with yours. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna just jump in with whatever nonsense I've been doing
Okay.
lately. Then we can get into really what you've been doing.
Okay, that sounds good.
So I got into a really weird bout of nostalgia and started playing the Final Fantasy games again. I mean, those games are like 30 years old. They're some of like the first that I ever played, and that's it. That's literally I finished one remaster remake of Final Fantasy IV, a game from 1991. And as soon as I was finished with that, I said, I wonder what they changed between this one and the last time they remastered this one. So then I went and played through it completely from scratch again.
Mhm.
I don't know what's going on, but I've had some weird stuff going on recently, and I kind of just needed to disappear into, like I said, nostalgia for a little while. Um, I don't think I'm reading anything really. I watched Long Legs the other day. I've been meaning to watch Long Legs for a year now, and I finally got around to it, and that movie is excellent. It's one of my favorite Nick Cage movies in that have come out recently, and he's had a huge spree of actually really good movies lately. He's barely in that one, but I think it's one of my favorites. Um, check it out. Um, really though, oh, I did want to mention this too. 'Cause I had challenged Joe a couple of months ago. Um, the greatest filmmaker of our age, David Lynch, passed away in January. I'm still sad about that one. With all the other stuff going on in my life right now, still thinking that David Lynch is gone and dead is still really odd. It's like why did that have to happen this year too? So we're rewatching Twin Peaks right now. We just finished Firewalk with Me in the first episode of The Return last night. I can't even say how many times I've rewatched Twin Peaks at this point. My wife and I it's like our comfort show. That and King of the Hill are our comfort shows. Um, but yeah, we finished the movie Firewalk with Me last night, and that's a beautiful film. If anyone's interested in Twin Peaks at all, like that's a highlight of it for me. But I mentioned that because I had mentioned to Joe what this is a director I'm pretty sure you would hate. So I'm wondering if you've had a chance to check out anything from him since then, so we could argue about it on the podcast.
I have not rewatched anything of his that I had watched in the past. I think we discussed that I actually have seen a couple of things that he did, but it has been 2 decades since I saw them, so I can't have a really uh, sound argument with you about them. Um, but I because I know that I saw Blue Velvet on cable because it was naughty, you know. Um, and
That's why I saw Wild at Heart for the first time.
yeah,
That's I wanted to jump in there. That's why I saw Wild at Heart when I was like 9 or something because it was on IFC.
sure.
And I forgot that I had seen it for decades. My wife and I were going through Lynch stuff, and that like the scene where Sherilyn Fenn walks out of a car after a car accident and she's like scratching her like exposed brain under her hair. Like I was definitely too young to see that, but then I saw it again with rewatching it and I was like this is my first David Lynch movie. That was weird and it was really funny, but that's why I saw Wild at Heart, like David Lynch for the first time as well. That was a naughty movie, and turns out it's just a really good film.
But I know that we discussed his filmography, and there were a few of his that I actually have watched, but I haven't rewatched any of them recently or deliberately gone out of my way to watch one that I hadn't seen.
Well, if you do, I'll save it for the podcast. So my
Sure.
opinions of it, rather, I'll save it
Sure.
for the podcast so we can talk about it.
Okay.
And let's save it for when we don't have a guest.
Yes.
Melissa, let's move on
Yeah,
here,
that's
because
fine.
we've
Dr.
talked
Nivens, do you
about
have a
stuff here
favorite
too
David
long.
Lynch film?
I don't know. I don't know that I have a favorite. Just thinking about what I've been watching right now. We watch a lot of Taylor Sheridan series at our house, like Yellowstone,
Mhm.
Landman, Lioness. 1923 is what we're on right now. The most recent episode came out yesterday. Um, I like his stuff, but then I also get mad at him pretty regularly. Last night I was mad at him again because he takes every opportunity to beat women up
Yeah.
in his shows. And last night in 1923, there was another um, scene where a woman is just getting brutally attacked, and I'm like, why does every episode have this in it? And so I don't know if y'all are familiar with any of his shows,
I've
but
seen Yellowstone, and I know what you're talking about. It's a
yeah,
very hard man making hard choices view
yes,
of it's quite good, but again, it
yeah.
comes from a certain viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean, we've enjoyed them, and I'm going to continue to watch. But then I'm just like, here it is again. Here it is again.
Yeah.
Um,
Is this like a Game of Thrones thing where like the showrunners kind of heard that that was the big criticism and stepped it back, or is it just as prominent as it ever was, it sounds like?
I don't know. I mean, and it just and not. I mean, the Yellowstone and 1923. Those are the same Dutton family, but like Lioness is a totally different show, and it happens there. So I don't know. It's just
The
Mm.
terminology in geek culture is fridging. The idea of bringing in a female character and doing horrible things from just to motivate the male characters
Mhm.
to revenge, basically.
Can you
And it's a
explain
very
that?
real problem, I think, with a lot of media is the idea of bringing in a character or having female characters just there to be abused in order to call the male hero into action type of idea.
I
Yeah.
know you know why it's called that, but can you explain to our listeners why it's called the
The original name
woman in the
fridging,
fridge?
I was I think it was Gail Simone who came up with the term. I might be wrong about that, but I believe it's Gail Simone, the famous comic book writer, who came up with it because it's from originally from an old Green Lantern story where his girlfriend, the writer of the story, admitted that he brought in the character of his girlfriend just because he knew he was going to kill her off and have her body stuffed into a fridge a few issues down the line.
Mm, okay. I hadn't heard that term before, but yeah. As far as what I'm reading Lessons in Chemistry right now. And I picked it up over spring break, and I definitely want to watch the series when I get finished. I'm almost finished with the book, and I mean, I knew a little bit about what the plot was and what it was about, but it's really fitting nicely with a class I'm teaching right now. I'm teaching a special topics class called Rhetorics of Domesticity. And my students are like, we just recently we came to the library, and we pulled a bunch of cookbooks off the shelf, and they ended up doing like a rhetorical analysis of a cookbook of their choice. But what happens in Lessons in Chemistry the main character is a scientist in the 1950s, and it's a woman, and she's not taken seriously at all. She's working at a lab, and people think she's just riding the coattails of her boyfriend, and that she doesn't have any real intelligence, doesn't deserve to be there, that kind of thing. And to make it even more scandalous, she and this love interest, they live together out of wedlock, and she gets pregnant, and then she pretty much gets fired from the lab because she's expecting this baby. So again, 1950s stuff. Her love interest ends up dying, but she gets an opportunity to do a cooking show. She kind of they want her to be a particular way on screen. Of course, they want her to dress kind of in a sexy way. They want the set of the kitchen to be very, like lots of knick-knacky stuff and wearing the apron and lots of, decorations. And she is having none of that. Does not want to dress, the way they want her to. She doesn't care about the kitchen decorations. She wants to talk about the science involved with cooking, like the chemical reactions of the butter with the meat. And the producer of the show thinks this is never going to work. People are going to hate this, but it becomes a huge hit, and women are, scheduling to watch it every day, and making the meals along with her, and they love it. And so anyway, so it's really done. It's been a fun read, but it also has been really a nice tie-in with the class that I'm teaching. Today I've been working on a larger research project assignment for them, trying to kind of come up with the assignment. Students will be able to either use the cookbook that they analyzed or pick another kind of artifact of women's writings, maybe like an advice column, a mommy blog, something either from the past or kind of current, and then do some research related to that. Like, how did the cookbook create some kind of ethos, for particular women or particular culture? How does a mommy blog build community among mothers? Those are the kinds of research questions I'm hoping they'll have that primary document, whatever artifact they choose, and then looking for some additional research. So that's where we're headed for the rest of the semester.
That sounds very interesting. I'm wondering if so Texas has a very weird relationship with TikTok right now, but I know there are like TikTok channels that are specifically for like the like housewife culture and
yes,
like
this trad wife kind of
trad
thing.
wife, that kind of stuff. I'm wondering if would that be something also that your students would potentially look at in part of their
Yes.
research?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a real. I think that would be really relevant because a lot of these women are. I think there's really kind of two things happening. I think there really are women who are returning to this, conservative, maybe because of their distrust of everything else, distrust of education, distrust of government, distrust of really any institution, education. So they want to do everything at home. Like, I'm going to raise my own chickens, and I'm going to homeschool my kids, and I'm going to, do everything. So I think there's that kind of, I'm not going to take my kid to the doctor. I'm going to use essential oils or, whatever it is. I think there's that kind. And then I think there's really a group of these more trad wives that are performing domesticity somehow, that it's almost like a costume of, the way that they dress and the way that they, prepare meals or things like that, that it's a very much of a performance. Some, I think it's really a lifestyle that they're trying to adopt. Others, I think there might be, and then at the same time, they're making money, as influencers,
sure.
they're able to, really monetize that domestic work.
That's just so fascinating to me. It's yeah, it's something like it's traditional, obviously, but it's something that could only exist right now with the technology that we have
Yeah.
and the kind of the culture that we're going through right now. So I'm interested in hearing about what your students come away from it because that sounds like it could be a really interesting like topic and really interesting research.
Thank you. I'm really going to encourage them to submit an abstract for celebration of scholarship. We haven't really gone through the formal channels as far as it being like a Eureka project. But I do think that it would be fun, for some of them to present, what they find and share with a bit of a wider audience.
Melissa, I just wrapped this up today, but I'd also suggest that if you have some very good papers that come out of this, I'd
Mhm.
suggest having them submit it for the Moffett Library Research Awards.
Oh yeah, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that was actually the first thing I thought of was yeah, we could see some really interesting submissions from that, I think.
Great. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind for sure.
So outside of the classes that you're teaching, I understand you're also the head of the Mustangs first year experience. How long have you been involved with that?
We started our pilot program in fall of 22. I think that's right. We had a pilot program where it was we just we started the opportunity for students to take for first year full-time students to take a class that dealt with time management, kind of how to do college, study skills. But it wasn't required that first year. We were kind of just kind of seeing how it would go. And then for the fall of 23 is when it did become fully implemented and it was required. Essentially, we've had we've had first year seminars for some populations of students for a long time, but not something that hit everybody. College Connections has been a 3-hour course that students have been able to take for many years. Students that need a little bit extra support. It's a 3-hour class. Sometimes they are required to take it based on their admission status. Sometimes their athletic coach thinks that's a place for them to get some extra support. And then of course our honors students had the honors seminar that they could take. But that was still a lot of students in the middle that weren't really part of either one of those groups that still needed some of the skills that are covered in those classes. And so that's when First Year Mustangs Adventure, that's what came out of that. So it's divided by college. So let's say, a brand new student comes and they know they want to major in general business. And so they will be in a section that has a faculty or staff mentor from Dillard College. They'll have a peer educator who's also got a major from Dillard. And then they'll be grouped with other students that are business, accounting, all whatever those majors. They won't necessarily be grouped by major, but by college. And then they meet 1 day a week for an hour. The class doesn't have a grade. It's just like a credit, no credit class because it's a 0 credit. It still shows up on their transcript as the credit, no credit, but because it's 0 credit, they don't have to pay for it. It's free to them. Our peer educators are paid like any student workers on campus, and then our mentors receive a bit of a stipend to mentor that class. Each week, the lesson is we start the semester with goal setting. We use the SMART goals, trying to come up with some short-term goals, not that I want to be a nurse. What's something I can do, within this first semester or this first year of college. We talk about that. We talk about preparing for tests, how to manage your time. We talk about getting involved on campus, finding organizations. We talk about kind of managing stress, managing emotions, resources on campus, getting them to the library, getting them to the tutoring center, getting them to the counseling center, using the wellness center. And then by the end, we reflect on what their takeaways are from the class. We also encourage them to attend at least 5 different campus activities. And that could be something small, like, doing a tutoring session. It could be just going to a football game. It could be going to a performance from, in Fane, like a musical or a drama performance. Almost anything extracurricular outside of class counts as what we would call an adventure. We kind of use this camping or outdoor theme for everything with that adventure title. But yeah, what
I
other questions
remember
do you have about it?
submitting a few library events for first year Mustang experience. I wonder is the therapy dogs, is that part of something that
Yes,
they
yeah,
can
that would
do?
count as an adventure. Yep, they could certainly do that. I think that would fit really our goals. Like our course goals or our objectives are goal setting, wellness, academic success, and building community. And so I think those therapy dogs really fit into wellness category, taking care of yourself emotionally and mentally, at those stressful times of the semester. Yeah, students love that. And so, yeah, it would definitely count.
Uh,
Yeah.
Earlier you had thrown out the term or the phrase QEP. Could you
Yes,
clarify what that
I
is?
could.
Thank you.
Yes. Every 10 years, many of the schools in the South and Southeast are part of an organization called SACS, and that is SACSCOC, and that's an acronym for something long, Southern
Southern
Association.
Association of Colleges and something.
Right. And they do our accreditation, and we have a site visit every 10 years. And so ours was in 2023, I believe. And they check for our compliance in all kinds of areas, that faculty are credentialed to teach the courses that they teach, or that our budget is in line, or all kinds of different areas to be in compliance. But one of those things is some kind of new initiative that helps student success. And in 2013, it was the undergraduate research was our QEP. And so this time, when we came up for reaffirmation, it was this First Year Mustangs Adventure. And so when we had the site visit, we presented about what the program would be, and how we would implement it, or how we kind of selected the topic, how we implemented it, and how we'll know if it's successful. And so that's really what the stage we're in right now. At the 5-year point, my office will submit a report that says, here's what we said we were going to do. Here's how we had to tweak it to and then here's what our findings. We were hoping to have this percentage, and this is where we really are, and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's what it is.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It seems really fascinating. Sorry, this is at the point where I had a question to ask and then it slipped out of my mind.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I guess what I really want to ask kind of is this is the third year going on.
Mhm.
Do you keep the same like kinds of activities and the first kind like the same kind of experience going forward, or do you implement new strategies, new kinds of events as you
We
go on?
have been that pilot year, between the pilot year and this past fall, the course only happens in the fall semester. We don't have it in the spring. We did make a few changes to our curriculum, a few changes to our training of our mentors and things. I think this year, I think we're pretty settled on the curriculum. I'll get this. Each year, we create a planner. We call it a guidebook, and it has some original pages in there that places for students to reflect, and kind of a guiding questions for the class. This is kind of where the lessons live, but it also is just like a regular planner where students can, write down their due dates, or, their, when they have a organizational meeting or whatever. We ask campus divisions on campus to give us their dates, so like if the library knew when they were going to have different academic workshops or anything like that, we can get those on the calendar for next year when we have it printed. We get, like the football schedule or homecoming events, that kind of thing, get printed in there, performances from Fane. So every first time full-time student gets one of these, either in the First Year Mustangs or College Connections or the honor seminar. And so it changes a little bit. I think we're pretty settled We do get some suggestions. I think one of the things we added from last year to this year was like a list of campus organizations. And knowing like this is an academic organization, or this is a social organization, or this is an honors society, so give a little bit of details about that. So I think that's pretty set. As far as our training, especially for our faculty and staff mentors, these first couple of years, I really felt like our training for them was very operational. Like, I need you to do this. I need you to be sure you turn this in. I need to, it was very like, be sure you cover this, be sure you cover that. And I think we're now at a space where we can talk more about really how to be a mentor, how to build relationships with your students, really how to show students that we care, a little less of the to-do list and, just be sure you turn this stuff in, or be sure you get your grades submitted this way, or whatever it is, more of the how do we build relationships with our students. And so I'm really looking forward to our training that we'll do a little bit of that in this spring, and then we'll meet again in August before classes begin.
Excuse me, you may have already mentioned this, but is this like the first year experience, is this a mandatory just thing that the students are doing?
Yes. They are encouraged when they meet with their advisors, they are encouraged to take one of those three classes, either College Connections, which is MWSU 1233 is the course, College Connections, MWSU 1230, which is First Year Mustangs, and then of course the new Red Wine Honors students, they take the Creative Inquiry. So yeah, the advisors work to place them in one of those three. Sometimes we've had some questions about transfer students. Do they have to take it? It really the answers it depends. It can be a decision between the advisor and the student. If they're coming in with mainly just dual credit hours, we would really encourage them to go ahead and take it, because this is still their first time to be like on campus. However, if they're transferring maybe from another university, they may have already had a course like this. It's pretty common for colleges and universities to have some sort of first year seminar. But if it's really their first time to be on campus, and we want them to take it, mostly because of it builds that community. They begin to meet people within their college, but then also it connects them with the resources on campus. They may actually go tour the library or go tour the wellness center. Even though they get some of that during orientation, this kind of extends that orientation experience into that first semester.
I really wish my alma mater had something like this, because that sounds like it would have been a really, like, not just like a really interesting way to get integrated, but it actually sounds really fun to me.
Yeah, a lot of when it was new and we were interviewing our peer educators, a lot of them would say, "I wish we'd had this when I started," and so yeah, we hear that a lot. And now we're at the point where we've got a few peer educators who went through the program, and now they want to come in and be the ones that lead the classes. So that's exciting. That's what we were hoping for, and that's what's happening. So.
And I'll point out, Chris, this is something that's becoming more common among a lot of universities. So your alma mater might be doing this now. Who knows?
No, they're not. Without saying much, I'm pretty sure they're not. But I was wondering how that is implemented with distance ed students. Is that something that you're looking to try to incorporate?
Yeah, that is probably a gap that we still have, that we do not have even though we do use D2L to store some of the materials and submit some of the activities, we do not have an online section of it right now. That's something that we really kind of need to look at, how many students that is, how many students are first-time full-time freshmen that are completely distance ed, and see if there really is a need for that. But right now, it's just our students that are coming to campus.
I'll bring this up just because it's something I've heard from a lot of students, a specific type of students. I've heard from a lot of different students that they would like something like this, but for people who are going back to college after like 10, 20, 30
Mhm.
years type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
that's
they flunked
also
out
a great.
originally like 20 years ago and now they're trying to get back into college again.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I know that during our pilot, I was a mentor for one of our sections, and I had a student, like a non-traditional student like that, and he was in the class, and on one hand, I it was helpful because he did learn about some of the resources, but on the other hand, some of the things that they talk about,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
being away from home or being homesick or roommate problems, those were things that were very different than what he was dealing with. And so yeah, I think there might be room for something specifically designed for those non-traditional students because their needs are different. They're trying to balance, manage time with not just like a part-time job, but like children
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
families, things like that.
It's just something that I've heard from a lot of students in the last few years, especially
Mhm.
asking the library for help for things. It's like, I'm just overwhelmed because it's totally different than what I remember
Sure, yeah,
or, things of that nature.
yeah.
Yeah, we've toyed with things with like remote workshops and the like,
Mhm.
and I think that's something that could really bridge that gap, I think. But it's just one of those things. It's like we don't know until after it's already been brought to our attention, and then we might have tried something out before, but that's one of those things that I think would be extraordinarily helpful.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
I know that we have some community overlap with various initiatives and organizations and projects. With the first year adventure, uh, the first year Mustangs, do you get any overlap with our kind of renewed, increased initiative to work with people from the Air Force Base? Do you have any people coming in as uh, either currently serving or families of currently serving? Do you have much of that?
Not right now, but I was just thinking about that when Ryan was talking about, serving those non-traditional students. As we see an increase in that there might be some room again there for us, a specialized section
Mhm.
for folks that are, have that military connection. Um, I haven't seen much yet, a crossover yet, but I do think there's some potential for that. Um, right now our applications for new peer educators just closed today, and so in the next few weeks I have a coordinator, Clara Easterling. Her office is over in the student center. She's been looking at those applications and getting recommendations, and she'll be scheduling our interviews, so we'll be hiring in the next few weeks there to get our new group. We do have some that are returning. We have several from last year that are returning, but of course we have some that are graduating or moving on to student teach or clinicals and nursing, things like that, where their schedules prohibit. But we do have some room for some new folks there. So that's exciting to get some new peer educators. We have, as far as our mentors go, we have some folks who are returning that have done it before and are doing it again, but we also are always encouraging new folks. And so we do have some people that this will be their first time, and some of them some mentors. So I'm excited about expanding it, getting as many people involved as we can. So yeah, that's kind of where we are right now.
Since because you're in the third year now,
Mhm.
have you gotten any have you gotten any kind of return to your office from the first year or second year students who've come to you with, oh, hey, that first year program was great. What do you have for me now?
Mm. That's a great question. What we are working on right now is, maybe you've seen some posters around campus for the Rising Sophomore Summit. Matt Park's office is planning that for April the 2nd, I believe. And it's going to have it's going to have some breakout sessions that talk about the signature experiences. So now, okay, you've almost got this first year under your belt. You've almost finished. Now what do I do? And so pointing them in the direction of study abroad, undergraduate research, things that are opportunities to do in that sophomore and junior year, internships. And then we also know what we lose students for. We lose students because of finances. And so there's going to be a workshop as far as planning for the future, being able to pay for college. And then we're going to do kind of a reunion of sorts, where our peer educators will come in, the mentors will come in and meet with each. So we'll have like an area for each college. So like I'm in PY, so there'll be the faculty mentors from PY, the dean, the mentors, and those students can kind of catch up, check in, how are you doing? Talk to them about, are they planning to come back in the fall? And, really kind of getting them excited about what's next.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that there is some way for that to continue, like the relationship and the commitment and whatever it is that they have with the school. Like there's something that can encourage them to want to continue to do
Yes.
that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Well,
Ooh,
does
quiet.
anyone have anything to add or sometimes this happens. This totally happens all the time. We're like, huh, well, that was a really engaging and really interesting conversation. And now I need to think about it for a little while. That's that's like almost all the time on our little podcast here. So if does anyone else have anything to add though?
I think this is something that the university has needed, especially with the focus on retention, and that's been one of our problems before in the past. I've told people this before that a lot of our students, this is their third choice or this isn't their primary choice for college sometimes. So we end up with students a lot of times who are not ready for college, I think, because of that. And I think I'm glad to see that we're focusing on this to help, especially those students who we forget because most of us in academia come from a family that at least has an academic background, or we had mentors or people we knew that were from academic backgrounds, and we don't know what it's like for those students who have no one to go to say, I'm confused, I don't understand what's going on, this is overwhelming. How do I deal with these things, that these new ideas and these new concepts that a lot of especially faculty take for granted a lot of times, that a lot of, I find that one of the weaknesses with faculty is they assume that their experience in college is mirrored by all students, and that's not true, especially with the type of students that this university tends to have and cater to.
Mhm. Sure. We really do think about, I have an advisory committee as well. And so not only do I have the mentors, the peer educators, the coordinator, me as the director, we also have representatives from across campus for an advisory committee. And so they are the ones that I can, that can help me make some decisions and look at the information we collect. Like at the end of the semester, there's a survey that all the students take, and they kind of tell us, were they attending activities? What did they like best? What did they find valuable? And so we can, are they participating in the things? And so they help me kind of organize that data, kind of analyze what does it mean. And then also getting feedback at the end of the semester. I meet with the peer educators and tell me, what went well, what do you need, what's still not working. And then I have something scheduled to do the same thing with last year's mentors. I had a survey from them, asked them, do you want to meet either on Zoom or in person to kind of talk through some of that? And so we'll be meeting with them in the next few weeks so we're just always trying to make it better as we can, and looking at the feedback we get from the students and from the faculty and the leaders that are involved.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you want to cover?
Well,
Melissa, you're here. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or cover before we start wrapping up?
Well, I was going to actually ask if there was anything in the near future that was um, that you were looking forward to with either with any of your classes or with the first year experience.
As far as with my classes, I'm going to Texas Tech the last weekend of March to their Women and Gender Studies conference, and I'm actually presenting about that class that I told you about the rhetorics of domesticity class, kind of a pedagogy presentation. So I'm excited about that. I'm also going with two other colleagues from campus. We've been participating in Center for Teaching and Learning through the University of Florida, a learning community. Every other Wednesday, we've been meeting on Zoom with faculty from across the country, talking about some of these mentoring ideas, like how do we show students that we care? How do we build relationships with students? And so I'm getting to go to that a conference related to that soon with Bev Stiles is in that class, Jennifer McGowan and Suzanne Lent. All four of us are a part of that course, and we've been really learning some great stuff that I think can apply in our classrooms, can apply to first year Mustangs, and we're hoping to be able to bring that back, and do maybe a TLRC or something where we can share what we've learned with a broader audience. So I'm excited about that. And my first place to try to implement that is like what I was talking about in that mentor training, is to kind of change the way that we approach that training. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about, I guess, as far as what's coming soon. I'm excited to meet our new peer educators as we interview them in the coming weeks as well. I
Well, if there's
really
anything we can
appreciate
do over
y'all
at the
inviting me
library,
today.
if
Yes, for
there's anything
sure.
we can do over at the library to maybe help out with the first year experience or hosting anything, yeah,
Well, I
just
think
let us know. We're more
well,
than
the
happy.
problem is, of course, that we tend to launch our schedules only like a month in advance. What she really wants is us to let her know a year in advance what we're planning. And unfortunately, we don't usually plan that far in advance
But
sometimes.
that's okay. I mean, if it doesn't make it in the guidebook, we can certainly, I know when y'all send out postmasters or when you have flyers, we can certainly, all of our classes have a group me, like a little
Mhm.
group text. And so I can share it with the mentors or with the peer educators, and then they could share it out with their class, encourage them to, come to those events as part of, one of the adventures that they do.
Well, I
Certainly
know
for,
that Joe over here always, every year, has been doing the tabletop heroes,
Mhm.
or the no rooftop heroes.
Rooftop
Sorry,
Heroes. Yeah.
that's a Freudian slip. I'm a huge tabletop gamer. Rooftop heroes that he usually does on around Halloween, and he
Mhm.
also has his story time, his children's book story time for any of your first time students who might want to get into education or things of that
Mhm.
nature.
Yes,
He
I
or
participated in that this
who
past
just
time.
enjoy a good children's story read to them.
Yeah,
It's something that he does, and I'm sure he'd be glad to give you that information
Sure.
yeah,
once
that's
they're
great.
set in stone.
I remember talking to Clara about submitting our list of things that the library was going to do, and that was one of the that was one of the problems we had was well we decide on when we're going to do some of our programs like a month in advance or something, and
Or you may know what time it's going to happen in October, but you might not have the exact date yet. Yeah.
yeah, so I had told her I'm going to let you know whenever we have our dates down, and then she was in here for Clara business and came
Mhm.
and knocked on my door and said, "Do you have those dates yet?" I was like, No, no, unfortunately not. We're
She's going
talking.
to track you down.
That's what she'll do. Yeah, anyone who's listening to this, Clara will track you down. She knows where you are. Well, speaking of tracking people down, Joe, could you track down what's going on in the community?
Absolutely. There's a few things going on in our community in March and beginning of April. Right now, Stage 2 Dinner Theater is producing Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap. On Saturday, March 22nd, the Wichita Falls Museum of Art at MSU, Texas will host an on-the-wall workshop of felted pop art. The Department of Music is presenting the Triple Dame Trio recital on Tuesday, March 25th, and a combined choir concert on Sunday, March 30th. MSU Texas is holding an employee recognition celebration on April 4th at 2 in D.L. Elgin Coliseum. Backdoor Theater is hosting an evening of improv on Saturday, April 5th. And the Department of Music will have a trumpet studio recital on April 5th and a horn studio recital on Tuesday, April 8th. If you'd like to have more information about these things that I mentioned today or any other local activities, you should check out the events section of the MSU Texas homepage and the calendar at discoverwichitafalls.com/events. And of course, if you have anything that you'd like for us to talk about, or if you have any comments or questions or suggestions, just zap a line, an email to the library here at MSU Texas.
All right, I think that's a podcast. Thank you so much, Dr. Nivens, for joining us today. I really hope that this encourages more students to get engaged and actually go around campus, and we can see them more often and just have a livelier and more fun community. Especially, I think what I wanted to say earlier, actually, it's finally come back to me at the very end, was that we've been away from COVID for a few years now, but I feel like that was kind of a make it or break it point where we were going to see a lot of people really getting more insulated and more alone and kind of willingly in that regard. Or they could have done like what we're seeing now. They're getting more engaged and friendlier with each other. And I'm really glad to see that that's the direction that we're heading with it.
Yes, me too.
All right. And from us here at the library, thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you again. Goodbye.
All right.